Mr. Bauer is a senior environmental scientist with the Department of Fish and Wildlife's newly created watershed enforcement team. He has worked for the department's northern region in various capacities since 2005. Before joining the Department of Fish and Wildlife, Scott spent 8 years overseeing a watershed restoration program and projects for the California Conservation Corps. Scott and his colleagues had just submitted a paper that would be published, and he'll probably highlight that in his talk, in the PLOS paper. And this research is actually not just for myself, but many colleagues and the public and agency folks, has really opened up the eyes and ears on the environmental impacts that private land growers, and a lot of us admire his work in this field, because he's really been at the forefront on this. And it actually has really highlighted this issues in light of recent and projected future drought years. He's also a really good friend of mine, so please join me in welcoming Mr. Bauer.
I'm a fisheries biologist, and I'm interested in recovery of our listed salmon species. And I just kind of want to pose the question: can we recover our listed species in watersheds full of weed? And Murad already talked about some of the early things that I know our habitats have gone through, like the gold rush, hydraulic mining, in-stream dredging. You know, we're still dealing with the repercussions or the legacy of these kind of large-scale gold rush impacts today. Then we are followed on the heels by the timber rush, or they're almost concurrent, but you know, this is an activity that has affected our fish species as well. And you know, we're spending millions of dollars cleaning up this whole industry. And this was followed, like Rod said, by the green rush. It's exactly the same thing. People coming here from all over. We've documented people from as far away as Hawaii, Bulgaria, you name it, coming to our region, Northern California, to get in on this new industry, this new rush of activity. And like Murad was focused a lot on the trespass grows, or primarily talking about trespass grows. And our research, our interest has been on the 215 grows, the Compassionate Use Act of 1996, that legalized the cultivation of marijuana in California. So this guy was nice enough to point it out pretty clearly that they're a 215 grow. So that's what we're going to focus on today. And like Rod was talking about the Emerald Triangle, that's Humboldt, Trinity, and Mendocino counties. But what we've noticed is that marijuana cultivation under the guise of 215 is spreading across Northern California, Shasta County, Tehama, and it's working its way on down to Butte and along the Sierra Nevada foothills, and actually onto the Valley floor. So this thing is continuing to expand every year. This is from a friend of ours in the room. So this is southern Humboldt County, just kind of zooming into an area that a lot of us know. And each red dot there represents a cultivation site, most likely a 215 type of site. And there's 2,000 right there in half of Humboldt County. There's an estimate that there's over 5,000 now in Humboldt County alone. So it's a pretty big industry. Now heading east, just to give you another perspective of this activity here. This is Post Mountain, and the South Fork of the Trinity River is right down here, Wildlife River. And from a high altitude, it looks like a series of clear cuts in this roughly 9 square mile area. Well, when you zoom in, this Post Mountain was an old timber company. It was sold, it was subdivided back in the 70s. And in 2005, it's just a network of logging roads. This is Basin Gulch. It flows into the wild and scenic South Fork Trinity. And back in 2005, there's a few little residential developments, but not much going on. 7 years later, it looks like that. There's about 400 cultivation sites in a 9 square mile area. We went on a large detail for some of these properties back in 2013. Basin Gulch is a steelhead stream. It was completely dry, about 5 miles of stream. And we think water diversion for cultivation may be partly responsible. So this thing is exploding. I get bored of doing presentations sometimes. Try and use slide effects just to make myself laugh. So we call this a typical, I'm zooming in on a little finer scale. This is what we would call a typical cultivation site. A lot of these will actually have their 215 guard posted, so when you fly over, you can see that it's 215 grow. But this is what you see. A lot of these have these black tarps for light deprivation, so it's called depping. And what they're doing is tricking the plant into thinking the photo period has changed so they can get to bud faster. And maybe that's not really that important, but what is important is that it allows for 2 to 3 harvests per season versus 1. So all of our research and all of our thought about this issue was 1 harvest per season, 150-day use of resources, of water, of fertilizers, but now we're getting multiple harvests, so it changes the nature of this thing and what the impacts are on natural resources. Large-scale cultivation is expanding. This is what we call mega grow. When we first found it, there's about 40 100-foot-long greenhouses. This site has been remediated due to a cleanup and abatement order from the water board. Thank you very much. So it's all fixed up, but we used to think this was an anomaly. We're seeing this kind of thing more and more every year. So what are the impacts on fish species when you have that kind of scale? That's about a 4-acre site. Now, the natural resource impacts. First and foremost for us is water diversion, in particular during the summer low flow season. They're taking water out of the stream, out of springs. If they're in a fish-bearing stream, there's no screening. It's not properly screened to prevent entrainment of fish, killing the fish. And a lot of times they just throw a big pump in there and take as much water as they need as fast as they can get it. Pollutants. Primarily, our first issue for these 215 grows is sediment. A lot of sediment discharge going on to streams. Petroleum products, there's always diesel fuel now at these sites. They're big tanks without containment, and they're often leaking because now a lot of sites have an indoor grow and an outdoor grow together. So we're dealing with petroleum products. Fertilizers are ubiquitous on these grow sites, and everybody has to use fertilizer because, as you can see, hard-to-grow plants in really poor mineral soil. So fertilizer use is everywhere. Pesticides, not that common, but they are out there. No best management practices. So when you you see a construction site, you see a graded site in town, they're going to have straw down to prevent erosion. You never see it on a graded marijuana site. You never see best management practices to control erosion. And then riparian and stream protection areas, not really that important to most cultivators. Lastly, as I showed you the post-mountain conversion, fragmentation of lands, what's going on? What does this mean? For aquatic systems, yeah, it's important too. It's an important issue. But what does it mean for spotted owl? What does it mean for fishers? That kind of thing. So we're wondering what's going on out there. Here's the fish and amphibian species that we see most directly affected by these private land grows. Coho salmon here, steelhead trout, Chinook salmon, all listed in our area as either threatened species. All are threatened, and Coho are state threatened. Coastal cutthroat trout is a state species of special concern. They are being impacted as well. And these guys over here, these headwater amphibians, the southern torrent and the tail frog, we know the southern torrent are being affected because we go to springs that they're diverting in these real steep headwater streams, and we find southern torrent above the diversion, and we find none below, and we keep repeating this. So we know they're being impacted by marijuana cultivation. Now, I just kind of going to zoom in a little bit more onto this issue, looking at what do we see on the ground. This road was constructed to access or to develop a number of cultivation sites. It was built on slopes so steep that a timber company would never propose to build a road here. But they went ahead and did, and they pushed about 9,000 cubic yards of dirt right off the mountain, right down the hill, and right into this small stream. And buried the stream in many feet of sediment, and also what it did, it went down, and this tributary stream fed an important salmon steelhead stream up in our area. And you can see the fine sediment on this riffle. This is a Chinook spawning riffle. What you see underwater is fine sediment coating all the rocks. Again, so what does that mean for egg survival in reds, spawning reds? What does it mean for the juvenile fish that come up or try to come up through impacted habitat like this? What does it mean for the invertebrates that feed those juvenile fish when gravels are pretty well smothered in fine sediment? There's questions that we haven't answered them yet, but we think there are some significant impacts. Stream diversions come in all shapes and sizes. This is pretty common. The Honda 60 pumping out of the stream. This stream was dewatered below this really relatively small pump, dry downstream for a couple thousand feet. We see one like this where we have 1 million water lines collecting every drop of water out of this really steep headwater stream and then being fed to 7 different grow sites on about, I think, 5 or 10 acres when we were out there. And we found southern torrent up here, and we found them below here. We see diversions like this. These are more common than you would believe, but just kind of rinky-dink goes into these tubs and goes across over to the grow site. This captured all the flow of the spring. This is in the heat of the summer. This is whenever drop matters. This captured all the flow. Then we see cisterns everywhere. This is in a salmon stream, so direct diversion out of an important salmon stream. And maybe, each one of these individually is not that big a percentage of flow, but you take 5% and 5% and 5% and 5% throughout a watershed, and you're left with nothing. The ponds are popping up everywhere. In this case, in 2006, you can see right there, a little tiny pond, and in 2014, it's many acres. And maybe not a big deal. We want to see storage out there. People that are going to participate in this activity store water, but they're never engineered. You walk across the dam faces of these things, no pun intended, and you see cracking, you see failure starting to happen. When these things fail, they're going to fail catastrophically and really impact fish habitat, in this case, the Mad River. So storage, just some more shots of what we see. Everything from throwing a target in a hole to constructing a pond on stream with a large dam to digging a big giant hole on a ridge and trying to capture water or divert water into it for storage to really nice ponds that have pretty nice aquatic habitat to water bags, which are becoming more and more common. And when these things fail, and they use anywhere from 20 to 150,000 gallon water bags, when they fail, it's pretty amazing what happens to streams and habitat down below. And we've had one instance on the eel where it was pretty amazing sight, 80,000 gallons of water. The pollutants, here's what I'm talking about, the diesel fuel. In this case, they have a black plastic irrigation line delivering diesel fuel 500 feet downslope to their generator, to their 100,000 watt generator. They do a 200,000 watt generator, but going down, and the potential for spill is obviously high. You see the side cast of sediment and logs off the hills and right above a headwater stream, and then the fertilizers are everywhere. Liquid fertilizer, pelleted fertilizer, all these things, I think, killing agents, and not as much as what Murad sees. We occasionally find stuff, but it's pretty rare. I shouldn't believe that for private land grows. We see soil dumped everywhere, in this case right into the stream. And my big question on this is, that soil still has fertilizer in it. What is that doing for, why are we having increased blooming algae blooms? Sure, it's drought, but are we contributing nutrients to our systems and exacerbating these problems? We don't know yet. Degrading and land clearing, this is a pretty large site. This is what we see. Here's a backhoe. There's a 30-foot trailer. And then here are the water tanks. And, this is just massive amount of grading. And this is amazing. because these guys actually put straw down. But if you look at these road systems, you know, nobody that has any kind of background in using heavy equipment are building these roads, and there are serious time bombs out there. We're spending millions to do restoration, to decommission roads, to upgrade roads, and these kind of things pop up daily. So it's a significant issue. So I've showed you kind of an overview of what we're seeing on the ground, what we're seeing on the larger landscape level. But the big issue is, you know, how do we quantify the environmental impacts on land that's gated, that's steep, that's private, that's hard to get to, that typically often requires law enforcement help to get there? How do we do that? Well, as Rob was saying, we did take a look at this. We wanted to try and figure that out. Our paper should be published hopefully next month in PLOS. But we decided to look at water diversions. There's a lot of issues for people to look out to do research on this issue. But water obviously is number one because fish can't live without water. Here's our authors, and a lot of these people have helped with a lot of what we've done, going out with law enforcement and researching this issue. So thanks to all these people. There's lots more out there as well. So what we did a lot of flights. We went on a lot of search warrants with our law enforcement brothers and sisters, and we gathered some data while we're on the ground. But what was the best thing that happened is we were thinking about this issue. Google Earth heard our thoughts and produced some great imagery in August of 2012. Really great clear imagery so we could count plants, we could measure greenhouses, and we did it in conjunction with ArcMap. So we digitized all of our grow sites, and we did this in 4 watersheds in the region that we'll see shortly here. Water demand is a big issue. Everybody wants to fight, I only use a gallon a day, I only use 3 gallons a day. Some growers say I use 10 gallons a day. So Humboldt growers have produced a document back in 2010 that said allocate 6 gallons per day. And early in the season, maybe it's a gallon, late in the season it's 10. We think 6 is pretty good, so we're going to stick with it. And we compared the 6 gallons to the summer low flow, and I'll get into all of this shortly. And then we wanted to know how much is this activity increasing over time. How much is marijuana cultivation expanding in our area? Here's our steady watersheds. Redwood National Park is downstream of our steady reach here. This is Sandy Creek, this is Redwood Creek, Garberville is right there, and this is Outlet Creek, Town of Lewis is right about there. So we spread out our watersheds. We focused on Coho and salmonid watersheds. These were kind of nice because they're close together, but anyways, we did this in the Emerald Triangle, and basically what we did is we outlined the watershed, and then we overlaid a 1 kilometer square grid cell over it, alphanumerically coded, and you would basically zoom into A9, measure the greenhouses, count the plants, and this prevented us from, or allowed us to not double count. We think we were really accurate by using this simple technique. And then to looking at the increase over time, basically in 2012, you look at the site, went back in time, 2009, toggle back to 2012, and there you go. So you see over time, you see this thing increasing. And here's what it looks like. So this is Sandy Creek. Here's the town of Redway. South Fork of the Eel is right here. 101 parallels it. Here's Sandy Creek. Here's Redwood Creek. The red dots are outdoor plants. The bigger the dot, the more, obviously, more plants are at that location. These other, I never know what to call the color, aqua colored dots are greenhouses in square feet. The bigger the dot, typically the more greenhouses are at that location. As you can see, there's hundreds of grow sites in these 2 watersheds. And I'll get to what that means for water resources in a second. Outlet Creek, down in Willits, again, a Christmas tree. Sites everywhere, hundreds of sites, hundreds of greenhouses, all having what we think are an effect on water resources. This is Upper Redwood Creek. This is one of our more interesting sites because you have Green Diamond Timber Company, large ranches, and then you have an illegal subdivision on an old ranch, and there's all your marijuana cultivation. So land use is a big issue for us. We're always looking at that. When you have rural residential parcelization of a watershed, you get this in Humboldt County. And lastly, we just finished this one. It's not part of the study, but I thought I would share it. This is the Mad River, important salmon steelhead stream, and also an important water source for thousands of people. This had the most plants of any of our watersheds at over 50,000, hundreds of grow sites, and we're just now kind of analyzing what that means, what other research do we need to do to check out this watershed. Now, plant totals. These are obviously low because this is old data, but you're looking at between 23 and 32,000 plants in these 4 watersheds. Now, I should give you how we got to the greenhouses, or the plant totals for greenhouses. We went out to 32 different sites, 8 different watersheds, and we went out on search warrants, so we counted the plants and we measured the greenhouses. And all across Humboldt County, and what we came up with was about 12 square feet per plant in a greenhouse. So we simply took the total square footage in each watershed, divided it by 12 for greenhouses, and that gives us our totals for greenhouses. So this isn't that important really. What is important is this. Now, we have a hydrologist look at the summer low flow. That's when the streams are pretty much at the rock bottom flow for the year, usually since September. And we wanted to know what would that stream be flowing. And these are our steady watersheds. And if you took all that water demand, that's 6 gallons per plant per day, times by the total number of plants, and you subtracted that from the actual flow, here's the most important thing we wanted to look at is what happens in a drought year. Marijuana, how much water does marijuana need in a drought year? And in 3 of our 4 steady watersheds, Outlet Creek has this because it's dry. But you can see that marijuana cultivation can consume all the stream flow. And what we saw 2013, 2014 is that those streams were dry. Everybody was trucking water in, bringing water to their sites because they were out. So we think we were pretty accurate on our estimates, and we think our field work kind of verified that. What does that mean for recovery of salmon, fish species? Well, it doesn't look good. Now, the increase in cultivation over time, what you're looking at here is between 2009 and 2012, the acreage under cultivation in these watersheds increased between 70 and 104%. And if we were to look at the 2014 aerial imagery, I'm sure these lines are still trending upward. So it's continuing to grow. The green rush is still on, and we're obviously concerned for our listed fish species. Just going to show you some stuff of what we've seen in the past couple of years. This is China Creek. There's a number of, it's a tributary to one of our steady watersheds. 30 marijuana cultivation sites upstream, approximately. We dove a section of stream below it. We counted up all the juvenile fish, all the coho, the chinook, and the steelhead. We came back in August and it was dry, except for isolated pools for a number of miles of the stream. And what we found were dead fish, dead steelhead, little juvenile fish, dead coho, and water was still pretty cold in the pools. It was groundwater influenced, it was oxygenated, but we think the fish were dying from starvation because all the riffles were dry, all that primary productivity, all those invertebrates are all gone. So these fish were just simply starving to death. What did we see last year? Well, we've been doing some flow monitoring, and in this particular stream, one of our more important coho sandy streams, is flowing in July and dry in August. And we saw this, lowest flow, I believe, at Fort Seward recorded in the 60-year history. And you see these, there's a major diversion taking place every day. We have no idea who's doing it. But at one particular moment, they almost took half of the flow in a drought year, and it was a significant drought in the history of this gauge. That's a problem. That's a problem for fish, for humans, for all critters out there. So we're obviously concerned. Now, this is I haven't showed this stuff yet, so it's fun to talk about, but we put out pressure transducers in streams, and we wanted to see what the flow is actually doing. 15-minute intervals throughout the day, throughout the summer period. And here's one of our steady watersheds, and you can see flow dropping, and dropping steeply in August and going to 0, okay? That's one. This is another watershed that has a heavy presence of marijuana cultivation, and it dropped, had a weird spike here, but dropped, went to zero in August. This is our very important Coho salmon watershed. We're expected to recover Coho salmon in the song, with this particular watershed being very important. And again, drop in August, down to zero. West Fork Sprout Creek dropped very rapidly. We thought this was a control watershed, and then we pulled out a 1,500 plant trespass grow out of it. So unfortunately, it wasn't very good control, and it went to zero as well. The only stream that didn't go to zero was Grizzly Creek, which has no marijuana cultivation. So that's the debate we're having. Oh, it's all drought. All these streams are going dry because of drought. Well, all these streams, except for the one that didn't have marijuana cultivation, it stayed perennial. The rest of them were dry, so we think we have a problem. So I showed you all this happy news, and the big question is recovery possible? Well, one of the big issues, or one of the big themes that we hear about is we can just store our way out of this. If we use storage, if we all store with our time stream flows, we can have marijuana cultivation and salmon too, right? Well, if we have, scale to me is important, and this is what a big grow site looks like. This is actually one grow site. And if we simply do a little exercise of the scale, 1 to 5,000 gallon tanks, how much storage would this site need? And this is what an accurate representation of 5,000 gallon tanks would look like. This site has 1,400 plants. Needs about 1.2 billion gallons of water for the growing season. So need about 246 tanks. So it's all about scale. I mean, I think they can coexist. I think legalization is coming. I think it's going to be with us. But on the scale that we're talking about, the commercial scale, it's going to be difficult to achieve both of these. And as far as recovery goes, this is produced by a friend of ours again. You can see the red being the highest density of grow sites. This is the Coho song, Southern Oregon, Northern California unit. We're trying to recover this. How do we do that? I mean, that's a lot of water use. That's a lot of sediment discharge. I don't know. I also don't know how we can do that when we have marijuana being cultivated. And in this case, this is a headwater wetland, very rare habitat. They dug a hole in it and pumped it dry. How can this coexist when that kind of activity is taking place? This is the range of the Humboldt Martin, actually, and this is a grow site that was recently cleared. Fragile soils going down to the Klamath River. I don't know how we can achieve recovery when we have this kind of activity taking place. Or clearings on very steep ground that have no business probably being cleared like this, let alone anyways. So it's a challenge that we're facing. It's a challenge to see that these fish can make it through all of that unless we regulate, unless we enforce existing laws. We're going to lose fish that look like this, I think, in some of these watersheds. So I'm out of time, but we're trying. The department's trying its best. The state water board's trying. We got money. We have teams now. We're working on regulations. We're working on enforcement. We're trying to get this thing, improve this issue. We have administrative authority to issue fines directly to people. No more DAs. We just say, you owe us $100,000 for the damages. We're trying it out. We'll see how it goes. We're going to do a lot more monitoring. I don't know about that, because that takes a long time to map additional watersheds, so it's not. But and we're going to continue to talk to people like you, and hopefully there's people that haven't seen this topic before and are getting some education on it. But what I can tell you is we need more research. All these things, we need people, like some of you out there, I'm sure, to do more research. We're going to try to do some of these, but we just don't have the resources. We need others to help us out.